Welcome to the official podcast of Geoparks WA, where we will be discussing all things geoparks. This series is brought to you by Geoparks WA, an association dedicated to supporting and promoting the development of geoparks, geotourism and geotrails in Western Australia. Over the next few episodes, we will delve into what geoparks are, how they become established, and why they are an undeniable benefit to the local community. But first, let's take a look at the organisations involved in the geoparks movement. Geoparks WA forms part of the Australian Geoparks Network, which has been in various forms of existence since 2008. The organisation has an Australian-wide board made up of members with expertise in geoparks and geotourism, with others having an extensive background in geology and education. The Australian board is supported by an international advisory board comprising of geopark specialists around the world. The Australian Geoparks Network was founded on the 17th of August 2008 at the inaugural Global Geoparks Conference in Perth, Western Australia. Over the following years, the AGN held regular meetings across Australia, including workshops in Victoria and Western Australia. In addition, meetings were held at the World Parks Congress in Sydney and during the 4th Asia-Pacific Geoparks Network Symposium in Japan. In 2015, the AGN assisted the Forum Advocating Culture and Ecotourism, also known as FACET, in Western Australia to convene the national conference Geotourism, Tourism Down Under, which included a number of presentations on geoparks. Later that year, a meeting at Murdoch University in Western Australia progressed the AGN by establishing the state-based equivalent, Geoparks Western Australia, which was incorporated in 2017. During this period, it was agreed to more formally establish the Australian Geoparks Network, resulting from increased interest in establishing geoparks across Australia. In 2018, Geoparks Western Australia and the Australian Geoparks Network held 2 international workshops on geotourism and geoparks in Perth, focusing on their economic and cultural benefits. In 2019, Geotourism WA set up a more formal organisation for the AGN, which was finally completed in 2020. Since then, Geoparks WA has focused on establishing geoparks across the state, including in Murchison, Nannup and the Binjara Peel region. We will now hear from co-founders of Geoparks WA, Alan Briggs and Ross Dowling, who will explain their involvement in geoparks.
Hi, I'm Alan Briggs, and my involvement with geoparks really started back in about 2006 or 2008 when I did a first presentation about rocks in the wheat belt and the associated black plank wallaby. Since then I've been involved with geotourism and that became an involvement with geoparks when we started looking at how we could reintroduce geoparks into Australia. I did a PhD from about 2012 looking at people's perceptions about geoparks, and that was quite amazing to see that people really welcome geoparks, and that encouraged both Professor Ross Dowling and myself to keep moving forward with geoparks. While I was doing my PhD, I set up Geoparks WA, an incorporated body for Western Australia, as to advocate and promote and support geoparks as we know them today.
Okay, I'm Ross Dowling and I am a Kiwi now living in Australia, and I came here to do the world's first PhD in ecotourism. When that was completed, I wrote a few books on it, but being a geologist by background, I got more interested in geology and tourism rather than fauna and flora and tourism. So with a colleague, Professor David Newsom, also from Perth, Western Australia, we wrote the world's first book on geotourism. And while we did that, at the same time, we discovered this thing called geoparks, which the United Nations was talking about. We didn't know anything about it. But by the end of our book, we had got connected. So I then started to work in geoparks, and now have worked in geoparks all over the world in trying to establish them. At the moment, I'm on the board of New Zealand's only UNESCO Global Geopark, and I'm the Vice President of Geoparks WA. And at the same time that Alan Briggs and myself set up Geoparks Western Australia, we also established the Australian Geoparks Network, though that has been going for almost 20 years in various forms. But we re-established it about 5 years ago, and now that goal of that organisation is to get geoparks happening around Australia. That's my background.
Ross and Alan will be joining us throughout this series, sharing their expertise, experience and hopes for the future of Geoparks WA. Thank you for joining us for this introductory episode in the Geoparks WA series. We are excited for you to join us in our next episode, where we will be learning all about geoparks. For more information, head to our website at australiangeoparksnetwork.org and follow our social media page at Geoparks WA.